Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I'm your guy Ty. Let's get rolling. What we got here is a Troy built rider tractor, the Briggs Stratton 19 horse. This is exhibiting a hard start condition regardless of how charged the battery is. What it comes down to on this particular Intek build, a compression release mechanism that's built into the camshaft typically will fail. You can usually override that compression by choking off the carburetor with your hand. That way there's no air to compress. Usually it'll spin and then pop off and fire up and it's fine. What'll happen, you crank it, it'll crank until it comes to a hard compression, and then it doesn't want to counter over the main compression. So we ordered a new cam for this engine. Pull this out, show you the damage. Usually it's just gonna be a little bit of debris in the bottom. Clean it out. You gotta split the casing. It's kind of a shame to have to open up this newer machine just to replace something that was built cheap. So this is the camshaft, Briggs replacement. This is not some aftermarket Amazon replacement. This is a factory direct piece. And yes, I know you're thinking, well, factory piece is gonna break the same as the factory piece that was in it. Yes, well, maybe so, but OEM is going to be better than aftermarket offerings anyway, so take your best chance. This is the mechanism that breaks here. You can see it here. It's on a small little spring here, and the idea of what this does is as the engine is cranking at low RPM, it's going to bump the tappet enough upon rotation. And what happens when the thing fires off, this centrifugal force of this rotation is going to sling this weight out, all the way out, right there. And what's happening now is your cam profile is no longer lifted, therefore you're not decompressing any longer. It's going to run just normal. So right there, engine's off, low cranking. It's going to push up on that tappet, keep your valve open, decompression, allow you to start and crank. Once your RPMs build back up, it's going to sling out quickly, and then you go to zero lift. And that's what it's like when it's running. So the problem is this one's completely broke off in there. It's not decompressing at all. So it's full compression all the time, and this little starter can't handle it. So we'll get it split, look in there, line this dude up, get it back in, fresh oil, seal everything. Not in that order, but yes, we're gonna get it done. I've got broken camshaft, decompression pieces, spring, all kinds of debris. I think that's just a case casting. And then in here, yeah, I've got part of that rotation assembly. Alright, so that's pretty good. Everything seemed to stay in the bottom. I don't see any other obvious damage to anything else, so we'll get this piece out of the way here, get this rotated, get this new cam in here, new tappet, and we'll put her all back together after we get it cleaned out. You've got timing marks. You got an indent here and an indent here, which is usually top dead center, which all top dead center normally means for whatever designation they've made per manufacturer of what cylinder. This is only a single cylinder, so it's not hard to guess which cylinder they're talking about. Number one. So number one, top dead center, means that these two are aligned. This is the crankshaft and this is the camshaft. If you've noticed, if you roll this around and you got a dot on the crank side and it's not on the cam, you're just 180 out and you just got to go full revolution around, because these are 2-to-1 ratio. This rotates 2 times for every full rotation of this. Leave them here, that way when you go to pull this cam out of here, drop it right back in where it needs to be and you're all good. Plus, when you've got top dead center, your valves should be at full rest position and no lift applied on them, which means there should be no pressure. Yeah. There should be no pressure sitting on your actual lifter, what they call a tappet in these guys. So that way everything comes out nice and easy I mean, your tappets are going to fall out, but just watch. I can one hand this. Out she comes, drops your tappets and your lifter, and you're all good. Yeah, you can see where this is all broken. That decompression, it's all broke. Exactly. I have taken out the old tappets, which you see right here. These are what they call the tappets. The lifter is in between. So what I've done is oiled up these because they came with a new cam. I installed them. I removed the valve cover just to confirm placement, make sure they are sitting in their proper place on the rocker arms, which they are in fact. Keep in mind this rear push rod back here is steel and the front is aluminum. I don't know why. Briggs has done this for a while on a lot of stuff. I'm guessing it has to do with the integrity, the heat, what have you. I'm not the engineer, but that's just what it is. If you ever slip one or drop one out, that's lighter colored, which is closer to the bottom, and the darker, which is the steel, closer to the top. Now I'm going to check these lash on these after I get it running, just to verify after I do a break-in. I'm going to check these and make sure everything's within spec. So for now, I've got my galley oiled up in here where my cam is going to sit. I've also put a little bit of oil on my cam. We're going to slip her in here, line it up with the timing hash, and then I'll start cleaning this old gasket off here, new gasket on, and get everything back on. Yeah, I know you saw me there with a razor. I'm thinking, dude, have you ever heard of a gasket scraper? And yes, I have. I just had it buried under some stuff. I knew where it was at, but I didn't want to dig it out. Long story short, I had another motor sitting on top of the toolbox with locking drawers, and the locking drawers don't open until the lid's open. So I had to move some stuff around, but I got my gasket scraper out. Thanks. These little bitty Dremel tools you can buy on Amazon. You got a big multi-pack and it comes with some different grits of these little Scotch pieces here. I'll use that for most of it. Really fine steel, just don't gouge the surface, be careful. And that's for a little bit heavier. And believe it or not, even though this is not metal, this will seriously do some work on this. Just don't do crazy, you'll lose it. So I've already took it probably about 3/4 of the way around with the wire wheel, and I've got a couple little spots that are heavy that I couldn't quite get the razor to grab them off there, kind of around these bolt holes where they're really compressed. So I'm going to get the rest of them cleaned up with this. Looks like I might have to go a little bit harder with the razor. The only thing that stayed was this little bit, but I'm still going to clean the whole thing up. Just spraying a little bit of solvent up in there. Be careful when you use brake clean, just be smart. It'll swell seals and plastic parts. So I'm literally just down here in the sump of all of just the guts and meat here. So I'm just spraying, not crazy, just enough to wash out this lower housing. So I'm not getting crazy, I'm not spraying everything in here. Just spraying what I need to. Because everything all settled in the bottom anyway, and it only rolled to the back. I laid it there. Mostly everything else is sitting inside of there. So we'll clean that up really good. Got my timing set. All I've got to do is throw my governor back on there. Your governor, based on RPM, the little weights will swing out and push, rotating your governor arm, which goes to your carburetor, regulating throttle, or I'm sorry, governing your throttle. So I'm just taking a screwdriver, it's clean, paper towel, kind of going up underneath here. We're gonna get all that spray out of there, and I've kind of got this leaning forward so it drains kind of on its own pretty good. I'll take you on a trip down here so you can see. Look at this. Looks like I got some gasket material, maybe up in there, but there's no other big pieces. I'm gonna get that little piece out of there. and then we're going to get this new gasket put on. But right now my timing's set good, my tappets are in place, and we're getting ready to rock after I get that cleaned, of course. A little bit I forgot to mention too when I was cleaning the gasket, the centering pin, or I'm sorry, the alignment pin popped out of here. Make sure those are in there, because those are machined to precisely hold this thing exactly where it needs to go. Your bolts hold everything in place. I neglected to put these back in once when I was rebuilding the Kohler, and you would think that all of these bolts would be enough to hold this housing. Well, I was in a hurry and I put it all back on there and forgot these, and after a few hours of running you could actually see the lower housing vibrating around separately from this. So these are very crucial. They're there for a reason. Don't think, I don't need it, the bolts are going to hold them. You need your alignment pins for many reasons, because if this thing starts rocking, then you're changing your bearing angles, your thrust pressure, your whatever you want to call it, whatever terminology for your actual seat, because the case is essentially the bearing that is holding your crank in place on this end, and this is where all your torque and everything else happens. Just a lot of stuff, very important. Center pins, alignment pins. The second one I said, alignment pins. I'm not going to spray this down with brake clean because this is plastic. I don't want to damage anything. But you see how this is your governor. You see how this little pin is here? When this gets to spinning really fast, running off of gear down here, when this gets to spinning, these are going to fly. This is going to sling these weights outwards. Right? See how it slings out? And this rotational centrifugal slings this out and pushes this center plunger outward. And that center plunger is pushing outward against this, which is your governor. That's what controls your governed throttle, is the RPM. I know, good stuff, huh? Alright, I'll be back in a minute. You're not going to miss anything. I'm just going to literally take this in some hot water and Dawn in there and clean this out really good. I'm going to come back and blow it out. And honestly, with seals are so cheap. I mean, a few bucks, it's worth it. Now you'd be like, well, hey, it wasn't leaking when I took it off. Well, why change it? Because if you know what you're doing, it's actually really easy to change a seal, as long as you don't damage the surface putting it in, don't destroy the surface taking the old one out. So the good part is we can take this seal out a lot easier now with this lower sump off, because we can drive it from the inside out instead of trying to pull it off from the outside around the shaft, which is still doable, just a little more difficult. But honestly, you're doing work in and out. That seal has hours on it, so makes sense to put a new seal in. I'll show you how to get that in there. And that's a Briggs part number 795387 for the seal. I'm just double checking while I'm here before I knock this one out and leave this customer waiting another week for a part to show up. I want to make sure my numbers are the same. Seal number 792103. 792103, and the number I'm looking at is the actual little, you're not going to see it, but it's actually on the plastic of the seal of the seal there. The number matches the number on here, so that way I know when I take this out, this is the right seal. For hammering out the old seal, you do your best to not do anything with this surface here at all. You don't want that. You can tell when you look in here, you've actually got the seal, which rides inside of a lip, and this diameter here where the actual crank rides is that smaller diameter than where the seal sits. So that means I'm going to have to come in from an angle I might not use this tool, but I might come in right there and do a little bit on each side, carefully go all the way around until I get movement on this. I've got maybe a 1/16 of an inch of actual seal movement before I bottom out, so I know I can go around, at least get this out to there. Look at that. Bada boom, bada bing. You can tell I didn't break through the seal. Hammered it out from the inside. Didn't do any damage to this. All I'm going to do is clean this up. And there's usually just a little bit of residue, kind of like corrosion, rust, whatever you want, that seats around the outsides of these from the coating they're on there from factory. So clean this up, put the new seal in, and we'll get rocking. Clean as it can be. Matched up my seals. All I'm going to do is lubricate this a little bit with some oil. You don't need to put any RTV unless your surface is so bad you've actually got pitting in there and there's no way to come back from it. No amount of polishing is going to bring material back. So if you are pitted in here really bad, you can put a light coat of gray. I don't use black or red. The gray is your top of the line. It's going to cost you more, but it's worth it, especially on an oil seal. The way it doesn't pop out, it doesn't leak. You're all good to go. But all the sealing happens in the surface of these seals, so all we're going to do is put a light coating of oil on here. I'm just going to use the Briggs oil that goes in the engine. And you're going to want to find you something that is the same size as this to drive it in. Nothing wider, that way you don't want to go and, you know, mess up your surface here, your seating surface. And the same measure, you don't want to be too skinny to where you're going to mess up your lips in here. So I've got an actual disc driver set here, different sizes. So I can find whatever size I need. Let's see here, let's go with 53. See how that fits inside of here. It's good. Fits in there nicely. So with this driver set, you just make them really nice. That way you're putting in your seal nice and level. Even pressure all around the seal. You're not creasing your seal or bending it, or, you know, this is just the best way to do them. Okay. That just keeps that from literally falling off there. But I'll be able to take this seal where it goes and just tap it down in there ever so nicely where it's got to go. I'm gonna brace this a little bit so she's not rocking like it is. I'm gonna oil this and I'll be right back. Alright, I've got a little bit of oil around the outside of this. I need to stabilize this, but I think it's just my oil filter housing, so I'm just gonna roll that to the edge, put that back in. If you saw that fall out there, all that is, that's my little oil pump shaft. It'll drop back in there, it's fine. So I'm taking this, and your lip you want towards the inside of the engine because you're wanting to keep the oil in, so it needs to be at that angle. And I can oil this up later in there for the crankshaft, but I'm here now. So I'm gonna set this guy right down in here where it needs to go. Go ahead and just oil my face up just a little bit. Just touch. Set that there. If you remember, that was seated till I had about a 1/16 of an inch left over. Now getting it started is always the hardest, until you get her pretty much centered up. So for this section here, you can tell it's already moving around a little bit. Try to keep steady as you can. You might even be able to get a little bit of a looking pretty good there. I'm going to hold up here, that way I can control what's happening here. So I'm going in pretty good. Still good. Still going good. see I'm kind of rocking my hand a little bit in a clockwise rotation. That way I'm kind of hitting a little bit on each corner as I go around, kind of seat this thing circular. I think I'm actually seated all the way down. You'll notice the sound changes. Yeah, I'm down about a 16th where I was before. Yeah, looks to be the same. I'll go ahead and give her a little couple solid sends. Just make sure we're seated. That's it. Seals in. Use the right size driver. There's no gouges, no misshapen pieces. Seal is not damaged. The face of the seal is not damaged. Your seating surface isn't damaged. She's where she's supposed to be. You drop this little guy back in his home. That's it. So I'll get this, put the gasket on here and get this thing seated. The crankcase gasket. Briggs number 697110. Got the new gasket on there, but you can always use this stuff. This is great. Ultra gray. Better than blue, red, black. This is the best. So, I'm telling you, good stuff here. Spend a little bit more for it, but it's worth it. I would have got the big caulking tube, but I didn't need that much right now. So, just got this for now. I'm going to hit a couple of the trouble spots on here. I got one spot where I had a little small of a rip getting it out. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that compound on there. Leave the rest alone. Gotta make sure your oil shaft, which sits in your lower casing here, comes with. Yeah, that didn't go how I planned, so lining that up didn't help at all. I was putting that sump back on there. So what's best is I'm going to fast forward, skip over my mistake here, and I'm just going to show you what you need to do. We're going to remove the actual oil pump cover. We're going to remove the gear and allow the shaft to come through, and once we have the lower sump mounted back to the body of the engine itself, then, only then, are we going to rebuild the oil pump from the lower end back. That way our spline matches up. Because what happened is when I tried to put this on here, I fought it and I fought it, and I'll show you for a little bit, but it was a pain. So I ended up taking that off so I could allow it to spin, because you've only got one shot of lining up a flat oil pump shaft. That's it. You can't be, it's not like a 6-pointed shaft. It's either here or here. It's 180. You got 2 shots. So out of 2 shots, I got none. So learn from my mistake. I'm going to show you how to do this correctly right from the rip. It looks like I'm doing what I don't want to do, which is pop that oil cover off tack on it. Sometimes you gotta do what you don't want to do to get through to where you want to be. Life lessons. Okay, well, that's not bad. That's just a big O-ring. No debris in the oil pump, so that's a plus. And if you saw that, you didn't see it. Daggone it. I'm not a cameraman. I'm sorry. The last thing I think about when I'm working on something is pull out the daggone camera. I'm trying to be me here. So all I did was take off these 3 bolts, pop this cap off. And what's inside there, you ask? The oil pump guts. So that was just sitting in here, you know, all the way down, of course. So what I did is the oil pump shaft that they give you with the new cam, it was sticking up something like this, basically, and it wasn't going all the way down. So I should be able to get my casing like that all the way down. You just heard that. That's what was holding me up. It wasn't lined up. So don't go crazy. Don't stress. pop those 3 little bolts off, and your life will be a lot easier. So I rotate this now until it drops in its slot. Right there, boom. I'm gonna put the actual pump impellers back down in here. Come on, love. There we go. Alright, that's good. I'll take my plate right here, pop my little O-ring back out, drop it like it's hot right there. Perfect. Put that down. Cool. And I'm just going to put just the slightest bit of blue thread locker on these. I'm going to do the same thing with case bolts. It's all going to get thread locker, because nothing vibrates worse than a small engine. You noticed I didn't crank those down. Not even close. Just kind of run them in. Come back. Just one hand these, because it's an O-ring seal. Ain't gotta be stupid crazy. Literally one hand tightness, and she's good to go. I'm not a fan of tightening into aluminum. It scares me to death every time. I'm going to check the valves, make sure top dead center. You know, you're top dead center because I put it together top dead center. But when you have rotation here, you've got a little bit of a lull between. Watch this. I'm rotating. See how I have no valve activity? None. That's top dead. If I keep going, I get valve action. You cannot set your lash with valve action. Alright. You also got to make sure you're not sitting on your decompression. That's going to mess you up too. So right now, where I'm wiggling, no motion. Top dead center. I can check lash, intake, and exhaust. And be done with it. Alright, here we go. Start up. Beautiful. Beautiful. And that's it, guys. Hope I was able to help you out and get you through your problem. Keep on fixing. We'll see you on the next one. God bless. Thanks.